Hi there, this is Ranjit, and in this video, I'm going to talk about top smartphone myths that you might have, and I'll try to bust them. And these are common myths that a lot of people have about smartphones, like sensors, etc. And I see in a lot of YouTube comments people fighting about this, and also in online forums. So let's get to them. And the first thing is, and this is a common myth that many people have: the more the megapixel that you have on a smartphone, the better the results are. And this cannot be true. Yes, in realistic world, the higher megapixel count that you have, the picture should be better. But again, with the smartphone, you have to realize, guys, that the space available for the sensor is very tiny, just this much. And these manufacturers have to pack in all those pixels in that sensor. For example, if you say a camera is having 12 megapixel, that means it's having 12 million pixels on that sensor. Whereas let's say another XYZ camera, for example, the Xperia XZ, had a 23 megapixel sensor. That means they had to pack 23 million pixel. And yes, it can be great. The higher megapixel means if you take a photograph, you can zoom in a lot more compared to a camera with 12 megapixel. But the con is that with the higher megapixel count, especially with smartphones, because the sensor size actually is not that big, in artificial lighting and low lighting conditions, a camera with a very high megapixel count will suffer compared to other camera. Whereas, for example, let's take the example of the most popular smartphones which have great camera. For example, the iPhone 7, the Galaxy S7, and even the Pixel. You will notice one thing very common is that all of these have a 12 megapixel rear facing camera sensor, not a 16 or a 32. Earlier, Samsung used to go with higher megapixel count, but they have also come down to about 12 megapixel. The thing is that compared to a higher megapixel count, for example, like 23 or whatever, if you pack in those many pixels on a sensor, the size of the actual pixel gets smaller and smaller because the size that is available is just limited. And due to that, the amount of light that can go to the sensor gets reduced. Hence, in smartphones, specifically this is for smartphones, the pixel size is very important. Hence, lately we have seen many of the smartphone vendors, especially Samsung, etc., moved from 16 megapixel to 12 megapixel. And I feel the 12 megapixel is the sweet spot as of now in the industry. The pixels are good enough that they let in a lot of light. That's the reason that many of these cameras actually perform a lot better in artificial and indoor lighting conditions. Again, it's not just the pixel size, guys. This actual sensor, the lens, and all those things matter. But again, the myth of higher the megapixel, the better the camera, is a total wrong myth, guys. That's the reason in my testing, the Xperia XZ, though it did great in outdoor lighting conditions where there's a lot of sunlight, etc., but in artificial lighting and indoor lighting conditions, it simply couldn't compare to many of the other phones like the iPhone 7, the Galaxy S7, and the Google Pixel. I hope that helps. Now let's move to another thing. Many people say that you should not charge your phones very often. This is not true. Modern smartphones are running on lithium-ion batteries, and you don't have to worry. You can even charge your phone. Let's say it's just at about 70%, you can charge it. And in fact, I would say it's a good idea to top up your phone frequently rather than completely depleting it. Another myth is that you have to completely drain the battery on your smartphone before charging. Just don't do this if you are doing this, because that will harm your battery. It's a very bad idea actually to drain the battery of your smartphone or even laptops completely. Ideally, I would say I do not let my smartphone batteries go down below 15%. If you can do that, that'll be great. So the myth of completely draining your battery before charging this smartphone is completely wrong. And you can in fact do top-up charges frequently. That's a good thing. Nothing will happen. In fact, that's good for the health of your battery. Next thing is only use a supplied charger that you get with your smartphone. Yes, ideally most people will recommend you to use the supplied charger with your smartphone. But again, if you're opting for budget oriented smartphones, generally what happens is that due to the budget constraint, many of the manufacturers, maybe the smartphone might support quick charging and stuff like that. They don't bundle a quick charger because the cost of the quick charger is a lot more. So in those circumstances, you can actually actually charge your phone with third-party chargers. For example, again, don't buy the cheapest chargers that you get on eBay and stuff. They are knockoff. But again, if you're opting for third-party chargers from reputable companies like Oki, Anchor, etc., and again, if it's a Qualcomm, quick charge certified, you are safe to go. Also, do note that the cable that you attach from your charger should be a good quality one. I've seen this a lot, and many people complaining, though they have bought a good fast charger, then also their phones were not charging quickly. And the culprit might be the cable. Generally notice that the aftermarket cables, the cheap ones that you get in the market, are very thin, but the original cable that you might be getting with your smartphone is a lot thicker. So also pay attention to the cable that is being used. Also, again, this is a common myth, and I do get a lot of questions regarding this one. Will I, degrade my battery life, or my smartphone in the long term will have bad effects if I charge it overnight? It's perfectly safe to charge your smartphone overnight. These modern smartphones don't allow overcharge. When your battery reaches 100%, they'll stop the charging. And again, so don't have to worry about it. But again, if you are super paranoid, again, I've just recently ordered a smart plug which actually cuts off the power after say 2 hours or 3 hours. You can just program that. Again, I'll be making a video about that. But again, completely charge. If you just go to sleep and put your smartphone to charge overnight, nothing bad will happen. These modern smartphones are pretty smart, and the charger will cut the charge. This is a common question that I've started getting recently, and this is regarding Dolby. We have seen a lot of smartphones now coming with Dolby support, and many users think that if a smartphone is having Dolby support, the sound output from the speaker will be magically very loud. That's far away from truth. Again, the output of the speaker will depend upon the manufacturer. If it's having a dual speaker setup, single speaker setup, the only thing that Dolby would do is that if your smartphone is Dolby enabled, is give you a surround sound experience. And again, I've seen this thing with a lot of smartphones these days. Even with a single speaker, they are calling it Dolby. And I don't think so that makes a lot of sense, because with a single speaker, you can't get that stereo effect. Another thing that will be enhanced if you have Dolby support is that if you're wearing headphones and if you switch on that Dolby, it enhances the bass a little bit. But again, don't expect that if your smartphone is having Dolby support, magically the sound output from the speakers will be really loud. That's far away from the truth. Also, this is a common thing that we were seeing a long time ago, and still a lot of people ask me, and I know many people who frequently kill all the apps from their smartphones. Actually, you should not do this. If you're having a modern smartphone, for the last 1 or 2 years, it'll have at least 2 gigabytes of RAM. And recently, if you have purchased, most smartphones come with 3 or 4 gigabytes of RAM. If you're having that kind of a smartphone, it's actually a bad idea to kill all the apps, because Android as well as iOS do manage the memory very well, and you don't have to actually swipe away or kill apps. And in fact, you shouldn't use memory cleaning apps that are available on these Play stores and stuff like that. They actually hamper the battery life. For example, Android as well as iOS is very intelligent in managing the background tasks. For example, you have let's say 4 tasks in your memory, and let's say you want to load a 5th app. If the 4th app is not being used, the operating system will remove it out of the memory and load the 5th app. You don't have to manually remove it. And in fact, but if you're manually removing everything, let's say you want to go back to the 2nd app, the OS has to actually reload it again, and that consumes a lot more resources. So using task managers and these batteries, killing apps, memory management apps is not a good idea. Again, yes, it might be useful if you have a very old Android phone, for example, that might have just 1 gigabyte of RAM, then it might be useful. But again, with many of the modern smartphones that have over 2 gigabytes of RAM, this is unnecessarily, and in fact, it can have negative results. Also, this is a thing that I've been getting a lot. Full signal means you will be getting the best mobile data. For example, if you're on 3G or 4G. technically speaking, you guys are correct. But again, it's not as simple as that in the real world. I've seen many times, even in areas where I have full signal, the data that I'm getting on 3G and 4G might not be very fast. And guys, it depends upon how many number of users are there in that particular network on that cell tower. If there are too many people, even though if you're having a full, I would say, signal, you might not get huge data rates. So that's the reason that whenever I do speed test, it differs from area to area. So again, that's another myth. And this is the last myth, and I keep getting this question a lot these days because many of the new smartphones are coming with the higher capacity batteries, and these manufacturers are bundling high capacity chargers and quick chargers. For example, these days it's not uncommon to find phones with a 2 amp charger, and for many of the mid-range to high-end smartphones, they come with fast chargers like Qualcomm Quick Charge and stuff. And when you use these fast chargers with your phones will get warm while charging, warm to even, I would say, sort of hot. And guys, don't worry, this is completely normal. This happens with almost every phone, even iPhone 7, Galaxy S7, Pixel, etc. And all these phones, when you charge with fast chargers, they tend to get warm. And this is perfectly normal. Your phone is not defective. The reason for that is that we are pushing in a lot more current to charge it faster. That's the reason you see that heat being dissipated, and this is completely normal behavior. So don't get worried about it. So guys, these were some of the common myths that I have been seeing around regarding smartphones. If you know any other common myth that you have encountered regarding smartphone, do post your thoughts in the YouTube comments below. And if you think this video was helpful, and if you're not subscribed to my YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching. This is Ranjit, and I hope to see you in my next video.